But how do you get up there in the first place? You're going to need some way of climbing up. So we'll create a very useful entity, which you'll probably use a lot. That's a ladder entity. There's a couple different objects which create the ladder itself. The first and most ladder-like object that's going to make up our ladder itself is simply the ladder prop object. So with our entity tool, we're going to place a prop underscore static. And this will simply be, click in the world, selection tool, Alt Enter to bring up the object properties. This will simply be the model of our ladder. It contains no functionality. By simply placing the ladder model, we will not be able to actually climb it. But we'll switch to our world model, browse, you type ladder in our filter, and if you go down the list, you'll notice it blink when there's nothing within that folder that matches our filter. Now I happen to know that in City 17, C17, there are a few good ladders. So pick whatever ladder you like. This one looks good and sturdy. Click OK and apply, and we get that ladder there. Now, we can use this ladder to show us a couple different things. First off, it might be a little too high. It also could be just right, but you may have the inclination to simply grab your ladder and drag it down, and it lines up a bit better with our metal wall between our turrets. Now in this case, with our thick floor, this actually is probably going to work just fine. We can come into our top view here, move it a little bit closer to our wall, get the height right along there, and you can see in the side view, in the front view, that our ladder is extending into our floor. It's a little bit more strenuous on the engine than it could be, but makes our ladder right into the floor and shouldn't be a problem. But if your ladder escapes or protrudes through the floor into the void, we'll create a leak, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. For now, just ensure that your ladder doesn't escape into the void. And as I said, simply the prop object itself, the static object that is the ladder shape, does not have any core functionality. We need to add a functionality entity that is usefully named a func ladder. A ladder entity, like our buy zone, is a volumetric brush entity. So we'll have to start by using our block tool to draw the space in which a player can climb our ladder. Keeping in mind that the model itself is not functional, we want to create an area directly in front of our ladder, but not overlapping it, right in front. There will be the space in which someone can appear to be climbing that model. If we made it much taller than our ladder, you'd be able to climb up into dead space or empty space. So we want to make sure we're right on with our ladder. Enter to make the object. And just to make it a little easier for us, we'll switch the texture from our rusted metal to ladder. And you'll see there are several textures of ladders which we could use to create brush ladders instead of our static prop model of a ladder. But what we're looking for is the ladder texture. And we'll apply that to our space. Close the face sheet edit. With our soon-to-be ladder entity selected, we're going to tie it to an entity to create the functionality. Now, in most games other than Counter-Strike, the function entity that we're looking for is a func usable ladder. But a usable ladder doesn't exist in Counter-Strike Source, and the entity we're looking for is simply a func underscore ladder. Hit apply, and it looks slightly different than we'll see in other games such as Half-Life in the way it's laid out, but it's a bit simpler. So with our func ladder applied, close this dialog, and this would work just as is. As soon as you run up into this area, you'd run up the ladder, climb up the ladder, and we could get to the top of our platform. There are a couple things we can do to make accessing the ladder a little easier. Create a new entity with our entity creation tool. at the base of the ladder. Alt Enter. We're going to change it from a prop static to an info ladder dismount. Hit apply. And this creates a smart info node object, which basically tells our game some additional information about where you can get on or off the ladder. As I said, it would work without placing this node, but the node will help people more easily climb and get on. So we'll zoom up here, shift drag, clone our dismount point. We'll place another dismount point on either side of our ladder, so it'll be easier to get off to either side. It shouldn't be difficult to get off in front. We'll try to make getting off on the sides a bit easier here. So we'll put one dismount point centered on one side of our ladder, shift drag, put the other on the other side. Now if this was a func usable ladder, it would actually be a nameable entity, and we could tie these info nodes to it specifically. It's not necessary even then, and we definitely don't need to do it now, since we don't even have the option to add a name to our func ladder. Alright, so now we have a buy zone with our terrorists who can run around and go up, chase the enemies, use the holes in their turrets, hide behind their wall, climb up their ladder, maybe get out front here. It's a pretty exposed area if you're just standing here waiting for someone to come up and shoot you. So why don't we just really quickly add a little bit of a shield, and maybe you can duck behind here. Make this a little more intriguing of a place to be.